How can the New York Giants build a better offensive line with what they have? We're talking about that and more on today's Locked On Giants podcast, coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. You got P Train here, Patricia Traina, and happy Monday to everybody. Hope everybody had a good weekend. If you were in the Northeast like I am, it was a bit of a wet weekend, but hey, at least we didn't have to go anywhere. Most of us, at least at any rate, we were able to recoup from Thursday night football and Giants starting a new work week. Got to get it turned around, and hopefully we'll have better results to talk about in the days ahead. But for today's show, we are going to cover a couple of topics. We're going to talk about building a better offensive line. I have some thoughts about the offensive line, as well as basically some feedback to some of you guys who have written into me with suggestions and questions about the offensive line. So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about the defense, specifically the run defense. What exactly is wrong with it? And why is this such a big problem? And then we'll close things out on today's show with guys that need to step up. I mean, right now there's just a whole laundry list of guys that need to step up, but I have a few in particular that I think really need to bring it. And, you know, regardless of the scheme, if the opportunities are there, you need to bring it. So that's on today's show. That's our topic for today. Thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. All right, let's get into topic number one, which is the offensive line. Build a better offensive line. Now, I see a lot of times on Twitter, I see it in my emails from you guys, you know, oh, the Giants, where can they find offensive line help? Where can they find guys that can block? Guys, here's the bottom line. Here's the harsh reality of the situation. Besides the fact that if there was anybody worth a nickel, if you will, out there on the streets, the Giants probably would have brought them in by now. But here's the thing. All right. So when you have a healthy Andrew Thomas in the lineup, you now have 2 first-round picks, right? Thomas and Evan Neal. You have a second-round pick, John Michael Schmitz at center. If Josh Ezeudu stays in the lineup, which I believe he will, he's a third-round pick. Marcus McKethan, who has been playing the last, couple of games at right guard, is a fifth-round pick. These are all premium assets, guys. So at what point do we say, maybe it's not the talent? Maybe this Groundhog Day that we continue to experience with this offensive line just not being good, maybe it's on the coaching. All right. Now, I go back to several years ago when Eric Flowers was on this team. And Eric Flowers, the Giants coaching staff, just insisted that he was going to be a left tackle. And it didn't work out. And what happened? Well, they got rid of him. He went on to another team. That team moved him inside the guard. And hey, guess what? Eric Flowers became serviceable. So I can't help but wonder how much coaching factors into the problems we have seen with the offensive line. And I mentioned that to start things off because when I give you the lineup that I'm thinking of that makes the most sense for the team moving forward, it's got to come down to the coaches realizing that maybe what they're doing right now just isn't the best way to go about. So with that being said, what is an ideal offensive line, at least in my eyes? Now, you might agree, you might disagree, but here's what I have. Andrew Thomas, left tackle, okay, he's not going anywhere. So once he's healthy, he's back at left tackle. I'm going to jump over to center. John Michael Schmitz, not going anywhere. As long as he's healthy, he's the center. He's a rookie. He's still getting his feet wet, but he's been holding up fairly well at the center position. All right, left guard, and right tackle. Here's where I would do a little bit of juggling. At right tackle, I would actually put Joshua Ezeudu at right tackle and move Evan Neal inside to right guard. Now, hear me out on this before you say I'm nuts. To me, I watch Ezeudu, I watch Evan Neal, and I just think Evan Neal, still with the balance issues, he has heavy feet. He's kind of clumsy in space. The kid works his tail off. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, he's lazy and he's, doing what he thinks he should be doing. He's trying to take the coaching, but sometimes you just don't have it, So if you're not a fit, if your skill set and physical abilities are not an ideal fit for what you're being asked to play, maybe it's time to say, maybe we should kick him inside to guard where maybe he's going to be less of a liability, particularly in pass protection. So, again, Neal, I look at, he's clumsy. He's got balance issues. I've seen instances where he's been on the ground, which is where you don't want to see, your offensive lineman. And then I look at Ezeudu, who has been filling in for Andrew Thomas at left tackle the last 2 games, while Thomas has been dealing with that hamstring issue. Ezeudu, to me, his footwork is a lot better. His back pedal is decent enough in pass pro. He's got much better balance than what I've seen from Evan Neal. He's light on his feet. So, he's played right tackle in college. So why not solve 2 problems down the line with one move? And I say that because Mark Lewinsky obviously is not going to be on this roster next year. I think we could all agree on that. And I realized Marcus McKethan has been playing right guard. I'm going to talk about him in a second because I'm not prepared to say he should be sent to the bench and never heard from again. But on that right side, I just can't help but wonder if Ezeudu at right tackle and Neal at right guard makes more sense. Now, I don't think the Giants are going to make that move anytime soon. I mean, Evan Neal is a first-round pick, as I mentioned. I don't think they're going to give up on him just yet at right tackle. I think they're going to try and see if he can work out his problems. But I would say if he can't work out his issues, that would be, to me, an acceptable solution on that right side. All right, now let's talk about left guard. All right, so Ben Bredesen clearly won the position, but he's been dealing with an issue, an injury issue. He's in the concussion protocol, which he should probably be cleared from, I would think, this coming week. He obviously was good enough to beat out Ezeudu for the left guard spot, but here's what I would consider doing, especially if Bredesen is not in the long-term plans. And I believe Bredesen, this is the final year of his contract. Why not move Marcus McKethan over there to left guard? Start getting him snaps over there. I mean, look, during the summertime, the Giants were moving offensive linemen all over the place to get guys snaps, to see how they would function, who looked good, what combinations work. So it's not like they would necessarily have to be starting from scratch with this offensive line if they were to shake things up. Now, I don't know if that's why they did things, the way they did, in anticipation that they might have to shake things up, or if they were just doing it to make sure that they had guys that were experienced in case there were injuries. Regardless, I think Marcus McKethan, what I would do is I would maybe rotate him in a little bit there with Bredesen when Bredesen comes back, and have an eye towards McKethan maybe being the left guard moving forward. So that, to recap, my idea for a Giants offensive line, whether it be this year or next year, I would say Andrew Thomas left tackle, Marcus McKethan eventually as your left guard, John Michael Schmitz as your center, and Evan Neal as your right guard, and Joshua Ezeudu as your right tackle. All right. But again, here's the other thing, folks. And I said it before, I'll say it again. The coaching needs to be there. I hate to criticize the coaches because, I know they are working at stuff, but the results kind of speak for themselves. And when you have, 3 guys on your offensive line who are either a first round pick or a second round pick, and the unit is still not living up to expectations, you got to look at how you're coaching that unit. And if you're really getting the most out of it, if you have guys in the right spot, if you're teaching them the right technique, that's to me is an element that I don't think we're talking about a whole lot of when we talk about this offensive line. And, I'll leave you with this, folks. Currently, through 3 games, the Giants have allowed 53 quarterback pressures and 10 sacks. We could talk all we want about Daniel Jones and deep passing game and this and that and the other thing. But how's a passing game supposed to survive under those circumstances when the quarterback is constantly under pressure? It can't. So I just feel that until that offensive line is solidified, the Giants can bring in all the weapons they want, and it won't matter if Daniel Jones doesn't have the opportunity to stand in the pocket, to get set up, to scan the field, and to hit those targets. So we'll see what the coaches do if they make any changes. Like I said, I think Andrew Thomas should be back this week. At least that's the hope. Ben Bredesen, I think, will be back from his injury. We'll see if the Giants roll with what they've been rolling with or if they change things up again, which would be their 4th different starting combination of the season and in as many games. So, all right, folks, coming up next, we are going to talk about the run defense and what I'm seeing there. And what I'm seeing there, yikes, not a big fan, folks, but we'll talk about that coming up next here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Hey, Giant fans, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates, right? So that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I myself have used LinkedIn Jobs to find qualified writers and editors for Giants Country, the site that I run over on SI's Fan Nation. And the process is not only super easy, but it's a big time saver. Simply add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize whom you'd like to interview and hire. So don't spend time sorting through endless resumes and dead-end leads. Put LinkedIn Jobs to work for you today for free by visiting linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Terms and conditions apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. You got me, Patricia Traina, P-Train, with you, and happy Monday to everybody. We are starting a new week, and just real quick before I get into this next segment, just want to make a quick announcement. We have added a new feature to our subtext community members. Basically, for those of you who don't know, subtext community members, it's a special community of subscribers from the Locked On Giants podcast, and it gives me an opportunity to text one-on-one with you guys. I do special videos for you, and we have a new feature that I just rolled out this past weekend, in which we are throwing in a complimentary subscription to Inside Football. And for those of you who don't know what Inside Football is, it is a publication that actually I'm involved with. And every week we have a post-game analysis. So basically every player who is on the roster, we break down their performance and we tell you, what was missing, what was good, what wasn't. So it's kind of like a comprehensive film study, if you will, but it's in a written newsletter format. So the issues are usually about 8 pages. We send them out via a PDF, and we have people who absolutely love it, who have been subscribing to Inside Football for years. Inside Football being around since basically the early 1970s. So I've been involved with that for, well over 20 years now, I want to say. And, that's a new feature that we're throwing in for our subtext community subscribers as we look to build up that community. So if you are interested in checking out the subtext community, visit join subtext.com/LockedOnNYGiants. There's a 14-day free trial. So if you like it, you do nothing, and then you pay only $4.99 a month after your 14 days are up. If you don't like it, you cancel before your trial ends, and you owe nothing. So hope you will check that out. All right, continuing on with our program. What's wrong with the run defense? I mean, I guess we could talk about the entire defense, but I want to hone in on the run defense in particular. So last year, the Giants finished 27th in run defense. This year, they are currently 26 through 3 games as I record this. Now, as I record this, the rest of the league hasn't played their third game of the season. But the Giants are allowing 138 rushing yards on the ground per game. What's going on here? Overall, folks, several things. Number one, does this defense have a quote-unquote dog? A guy with an attitude, a guy who, is not going to take any snuff from the other team, a guy who's going to get in their face and want to impose the will of the defense on them. You could look at the play calling and you'd say, oh, Wink Martindale is aggressive, with the blitzes and everything. Well, big deal. It's not getting home. It's kind of like the bully who sits there and, runs his mouth and nothing comes of it. But let's stick with the run defense here. All right. Number one, guys are not getting off their blocks. I mean, I see far too many guys just basically getting washed out in it, or I should say caught up in the wash. And how does that happen? That goes back to that mentality, that dog mentality, that if your opponent neutralizes you, what are you going to do? You're going to fight? Or you're going to just sit there and say, okay, surrender. That's it. I just don't know that I see enough of them fighting. It's kind of like some guys I look at and, I don't want to say they look to avoid tackling or anything like that, but you look at the missed tackles and the angles, and it's almost like, where is the effort? Are guys just trying not to get hurt? Are they legitimately not sure how to tackle, which I would find hard to believe at this level? Why aren't they getting off blocks? Are they not punching? I mean, it's not like, the guy in front of them is like Superman or something. So I just don't understand why the Giants defenders are just not getting off blocks. And that's not all of them. I think Dexter Lawrence has shown signs of life. A'Shawn Robinson has definitely shown signs of life. But really, elsewhere, I don't see it enough of it. I mentioned Robinson and Dexter, 9 stops combined. All right. So they're at least generating something, but the rest of the unit, I'm just not seeing it. And I don't know if it's just, the run fits are not there or the effort's not there. I just don't see an attitude by this defense. I see a lot of passiveness, and that bothers me because they've got an upgrade of talent. Bobby Okereke upgrades the linebacker unit. Micah McFadden played well last week against the 49ers. O'Shane Zimenez played well against the 49ers. But there's just not enough ferociousness and not enough teeth flaring. And I think that needs to change, especially when we're talking about run defense. All right, another problem I'm seeing with the run defense. Offensive linemen are getting to the second level and clearing space out for their running backs to get into the second level and beyond. I've mentioned this before. A couple weeks ago, I think it was, Jason Pinnock was the leading tackler on the defense. When your defensive secondary members lead the team in tackles, that means your front 7 ain't getting it done. All right. That means that the opponent is getting deep into the second level and beyond. And that ain't good, folks. Not at all. The average depth of tackle. Now, look, I understand this depends on who we're talking about. Obviously a defensive back will probably have, a larger average depth of tackle than, say, a defensive lineman. But that can be a deceiving stat as well because, if you're bringing your cornerbacks up in run support, then that kind of shortens the average depth of tackle. Okay, so according to Pro Football Focus, there were 10 guys on the Giants' run defense with an average depth of tackle of 3 or more yards. Ideally, you want to try and get the tackles within 3 yards, not outside of 3 yards. So again, I know that stat can be kind of misleading because it depends on where a guy is lining up. If a guy is 5 yards off the ball, but still, if you know it's a run, come up and make the play. And I don't think guys are getting up there fast enough to make the play. So I'm really not sure what's going on there. And then one other stat I'll leave you with regarding the run defense: 0 forced fumbles. All right. Now, listen, I can tell you this, having been there, to watch the spring workouts, having been at training camp, the Giants worked on ball stripping drills, punching the ball out of the ball carrier's hands. They worked on that every practice that I can remember. Have you seen that happen with these guys? I don't see it. The stats don't lie. 0 forced fumbles. Now, I think there are times when you see guys specifically on the run defense, they go to strip the ball out, and in the process, they end up taking a bad angle, which is another problem with the defense. The angles have been just absolutely poor. So, just a plethora of mistakes and issues. I mentioned tackling before. How many times have we seen guys actually wrap up a ball carrier like you're supposed to? We see far too many, attempts at the shoulder tackle, or let's grab the ankles and see if we can ankle tackle, or, guys who just they're not imposing their physical will on these guys. And it's a problem, so this defense, I don't know where the dog mentality went. I think they had it more so last year than they have it this year. But that's a big problem. And look, it all starts with the run, because if these opposing teams are able to, on first down, pick up 4, 5, 6 yards and then bring up a second and short and then ultimately a third and short, guess what? The offense has an advantage. They can now open things up and they can do anything they want. How about starting to force some second and longs and thirds and longs to where now maybe the advantage swings over to the defense, and it's just not getting done. And it's a big problem for this team right now. So I'm not sure what the answer is, other than guys have got to start developing an attitude. They've got to get ticked off. They got to go out there and just be prepared to smack around the opponent. And we're just not seeing that on a consistent basis, if at all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, coming up, what players need to step up? There's a lot of them, but I'm going to give you the ones that I feel are top priority that really need to step up in the coming weeks. Don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans. So between my work here on the Locked On Giants podcast and on Giants Country and being on site to bring you all the latest and greatest Giants coverage, I just don't have the time to get to the grocery store to make sure that my fridge is full. Well, luckily, I don't have to, thanks to DoorDash. With DoorDash, I get everything I want when I need it delivered straight to my door. For years, I've trusted DoorDash to also deliver freshly made meals from my favorite restaurants, and they've never let me down. Now they've added grocery delivery to their offerings, and it's made my life so much easier. DoorDash has thousands of grocery stores to choose from, so you're sure to find one in your neighborhood that's right for you. You'll get what you ordered, or they will make it right. And you can save on all your grocery and restaurant favors with a Dash Pass membership. Now, for a limited time, you can get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to $20 when you use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. That's 50% off up to $20 with no minimum subtotal and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Terms apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. You got P Train, Patricia Traina here. And this week on the Locked On Giants podcast, we got a full week of shows. I mean, like we always do, Crossover Thursday will be coming up later this week. We'll have Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. He'll be joining us for the crossover show. And we'll just see if we can get you another guest on the program. I know a lot of you like it when I bring the guests on to get a different perspective of the Giants. So much stuff coming up here on Locked On Giants. And again, I appreciate you making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. It is appreciated. All right. In this segment, what Giants need to step up? Now, obviously, folks, when you're 1-2, the entire team needs to step up. I mean, look, let me just say this about the record before I get into the individual players here that I feel really need to step up their effort. The fact that the Giants are 1-2 right now, to me, is not so much a surprise. I think a lot of people expected that to be the case. What is a surprise is how they have played to get to 1-2. All right. 6 straight quarters of scoreless football. The defense just lacking that fire that it had last year. The sloppiness on both sides of the ball. You have drive-killing penalties. I believe the Giants have something like 9 penalties on offense alone, 5 of which were drive killers. The coaching operations. I mean, every week it seems like they either have too many men on the field or not enough guys on the field on at least one play. So these are all things that need to get cleaned up. Let's make that clear. All right. Now, that being said, I think if you were to take a survey of the New York Giants locker room, every single guy in that locker room would say he could play better. Here are some guys that I think are particularly standing out for the wrong reasons. Xavier McKinney, the safety. You know, it's interesting. Before the season started, McKinney had these cryptic tweets about being disrespected and all this yada, all this stuff that players tend to do. All right. I get it. He's in a contract year. Maybe he feels like he should have been part of the party that got a new contract, even though financially it made no sense for the Giants. But here's the thing. Has McKinney made any plays that stand out to you that you say, wow, that was a game changer? Or, wow, that was a momentum swinger? Not for me. And that's quite surprising. And I don't know if that's because of how he's being used. I don't know if, something else is going on. But I can say that last week against the 49ers, McKinney just did not have a good game. And we have not seen a guy that we saw a couple of years ago when he just put up career numbers. And, between the injury history and this slow start, McKinney's got to pick it up because right now, I hate to say it, but he's playing himself off this team. And I like him. I think he could be a part of this team moving forward. But the effort and the production has to be there. And it's just not really where it needs to be. At least not from him, not from what we've seen in the past. All right. Another guy that needs to step up, Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, look, we did a story or an analysis on Giants Country about how he was being deployed and, the lack of pass rush and all this other stuff. And yes, part of it is the scheme. But here's the other thing with Thibodeau. There have been opportunities for him to make plays. And there just haven't been enough. And, again, I like the guy. I think he's going to be a good player for them. But just something is missing from that game, from his game. And you can only put so much blame on, the scheme or what you're being asked to do. And look, Thibodeau, here's the thing. I mean, against Arizona, there was a play in which the tight end, Jeff Swain, absolutely manhandled him. He swallowed him up whole. I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe it. The sack that Thibodeau had against the 49ers, that was basically a cleanup sack that was, started by DJ Davidson. All right. But from his pressure. So, I watched Thibodeau and I see pullers are getting to the second level. He's had only 4 quarterback pressures and 27 true pass sets, a pass rush win rate 6.7%. That's not good enough, not for a player of his caliber and his talent. And I don't know what it is with him. He might say, well, look at the tape and how I'm being used and whatnot. Fine. But you can't sit there and tell me that regardless of how you're being used, that there's not opportunities to make plays, and he's just not making enough of them. So I'd like to see him start making some more plays within the context of how he's being deployed. Nacho, Raheem Nunez Roches, cool nickname, cool guy. But, when he's come in to, relieve Dexter and Leo, I can't honestly say I remember seeing him make a play that made me say, wow. So I'd like to see a little bit more from him. Bobby Okereke, I think for the first like two and a half games, to me, it looked like Okereke was playing with a little bit of hesitation. Now, he did play a little bit better as the game went on against the 49ers, but I just didn't see him, to me at any rate, it didn't look like he was playing as fast. And it could be, again, coming over from a totally different defensive scheme in Indianapolis to this one. But, you've been here all spring and all summer. You practice all this time. Things aren't starting to click for you by now. I don't understand that one. Deonte Banks. Now, this one's a head scratcher for me. Deonte Banks, came into the league with a reputation as being a physical corner. And yet there are plays that I watch him and it looks like he's going at it half speed, like almost like he's trying to avoid being physical. So we really need to see him step up as well, because he's going to be a staple of that defense moving forward. And right now, the physicality is just, I don't know where it is, but we haven't seen it all that often. And then I'll just mention one other guy. And again, there are so many guys that we can mention. And I haven't even touched the offensive line, even though I kind of talked about it in the first segment. But I'm a little disappointed with Paris Campbell. All right. Promising receiver. But there have been quite a few times when he has lost his footing and gone down to the ground after making a catch. His yards after the catch hasn't been very, good. And, look, if you're going to have the deep passing game, and he's going to be a part of this deep passing game, you got to get yards after the catch. You got to stay on your feet. And I just don't see that, early on. And I'm not really sure what's going on with him. So that all being said, and again, there's others I could probably mention, but, I only have so many minutes for the show. But here's what I will say, folks. The first 3 games are in the books, thankfully. 3 games in 12 days. That's just brutal. The Giants have this break now, an 11-day break in between week 3 and week 4. And their season starts week 4. Monday night against the Seattle Seahawks. If the Giants lose that game and continue to look lackluster, I don't want to see my mentions on Tuesday morning, because it's going to get ugly. Let's just hope. And I realize, you're going to sit there and say, whoa, why were the Giants practicing all weekend with all this work they've got to do? They have to get their days off. I don't know right now as I record this exactly what the practice schedule is going to be for the coming week, but this team has a lot of work to do in a short period of time. 11 days, and actually 8 days if you think about it, because they had the weekend off. It's not a lot of time to fix a bunch of stuff. And the roster is what it is, but everybody from the coaches to the players, they have to find a way to pull it together and be the team with the attitude, with the fundamentally sound football, with the creativity that we saw last year. because I don't know what happened to that team. I know every team's different, but you have a big core from that team on this year's team, and it just hasn't come together. And hopefully it does on Monday night. Otherwise, folks, it could be potentially a long, long season for Giant fans. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. I'll be back tomorrow with an all new episode of Locked On Giants. Until then, everybody, have a great rest of your day.